The morning after the porch, everything was different. Not in a way you could point to. Not in a way either of them would say out loud. But Nora felt it the moment she walked into the kitchen and found Cole already there, standing at the window with a cup of coffee, watching the sun come up over the land like he was seeing it for the first time in a long while. He heard her come in. She knew he did, but he didn't turn around right away. When he did, he just nodded once. Set a second cup on the table without being asked. Nora sat down, wrapped both hands around the warmth of it, and for a few minutes they just existed in the same quiet, which was somehow the most dangerous thing that had happened since she arrived in Dry Creek. Because quiet like that had a way of making a person want to stay. And Nora Ellis had learned a long time ago that wanting to stay was how you got hurt. She'd been running for 14 months. Before Dry Creek, there was Abilene. Before Abilene, there was a riverboat outside of New Orleans where she worked as a seamstress for 3 weeks before she heard the wrong name spoken in the wrong hallway and packed her bag in the middle of the night. Before that, there was the life she was trying to forget. The man who sent that stranger riding into Dry Creek was named Douglas Pritchard. He was wealthy, well-connected, and completely without conscience. And Nora had made the mistake of witnessing something she was never supposed to see. The kind of something that powerful men kill to keep quiet. She hadn't meant to be in that room. She hadn't meant to see what she saw. But Douglas Pritchard didn't care much about intentions. He cared about loose ends. And for 14 months, Nora Ellis had been the loosest end he had. She didn't plan to tell Cole any of it. She'd told herself 100 times that the less he knew, the safer he was. That what happened on that porch was just two tired people sitting in the dark. That she would keep her head down, keep her secret, and keep moving as soon as it was safe enough to go. But then Cole set that coffee cup on the table without being asked, and something in Nora cracked clean open. "I need to tell you something," she said. Cole turned from the window slowly, looked at her the way he always looked at her, like he was reading something written in a language he was still learning. He pulled out the chair across from her and sat down. He didn't say anything. He just waited. And Nora, who had carried 14 months of silence, so heavy she'd nearly forgotten what it felt like to put it down, she started talking. She told him about New Orleans, about the riverboat, about the night she walked down the wrong corridor and opened the wrong door and saw Douglas Pritchard standing over a man who wasn't breathing anymore. She told him about running, about Abilene, about the names she'd used and the towns she'd passed through, and the way she'd gotten good at reading strangers' faces to figure out if they were looking for her. She told him about the photograph Pritchard's men carried, about the reward he'd posted, about the fact that the man who rode into Dry Creek 2 days ago was not the first and would not be the last. She told him everything, and Cole Hargrove sat across from her and listened to all of it without moving, without flinching, without looking away from her face even once. When she finished, the kitchen was so quiet she could hear the wind moving against the side of the house. "You witnessed a murder," Cole said finally. "Not a question." "Yes. And this man, Pritchard, he's been hunting you for over a year." "Yes." Cole was quiet for a long moment. His jaw worked once. His eyes dropped to the table and then came back up to her face. "Why didn't you keep moving?" he asked. "After that man came here, why didn't you just go?" Nora looked at him across that kitchen table in the early morning light. "I don't know," she said quietly. But they both knew that wasn't entirely true. Cole stood up, walked to the window, stood there with his back to her for a long moment, and Nora braced herself. For the anger, for the order to pack her things, for the cold, hard practicality of a man deciding that her trouble was not his trouble. Instead, he turned around and said, "I know a judge in San Antonio. Honest man. If you testify to what you saw, Pritchard loses everything." Nora stared at him. "Cole, I'm not asking you to decide right now." His voice was measured, careful. "I'm telling you there's a way through this that isn't just running forever. He has men everywhere. So do I." 3 words, quiet as anything, and somehow more solid than a wall. Nora felt something shift in her chest that she had no name for and no safe place to put. "You don't owe me anything," she said carefully. Cole looked at her for a long moment. Something moved behind his eyes, something she'd only seen glimpses of before, quick as light through a closing door. "No," he agreed. "I don't." He picked up his hat from the hook by the door. "Ride into town with me this afternoon," he said. "There's someone I want you to meet." And then he walked out into the morning before she could answer. Nora spent the rest of that morning in a state she didn't quite have a word for. Not hope exactly. She'd been careful with hope for a long time. It was the kind of thing that made you slow when you needed to be fast. But something adjacent to it kept rising in her chest no matter how hard she pushed it down. She thought about Cole's face when she told him everything. The way he hadn't recoiled. The way he'd sat there steady and immovable while she laid out the ugliest parts of the last 14 months like cards on a table, and then responded not with fear or judgment, but with a plan. She thought about what it meant that a man like that existed in the world. She was so deep in her own thoughts that she almost missed it. The sound of a rider coming up the road. Nora went still, moved to the kitchen window slowly, looked out. One rider, coming fast. Not from town, from the south road. The direction nobody came from unless they knew exactly where they were going. She didn't recognize the horse, but she recognized the way the man rode it. She'd seen that silhouette before, 6 weeks ago in Abilene, right before she'd run in the middle of the night. Her blood went cold. Pritchard hadn't just sent one man this time. He'd sent one of his best. Nora moved fast, away from the window, back pressed against the kitchen wall, heart slamming against her ribs, mind running through every exit, every option, every mistake that had led her to this exact moment. Cole was out on the south pasture, alone, and Pritchard's man was riding straight toward him. Cole Hargrove has no idea what's coming for him, and Nora Ellis has to decide, right now, whether she runs again, or whether this time, for the first time in 14 months, she stands her ground. If you need to know what she chooses, you already know what to do. Subscribe to Hidden Hearts Chronicles. Hit that bell. Episode 3 is coming, and I promise you, it is worth the wait. Brownheart.